Welcome to LifeSource Health Report, where we assist you to holistically thrive in all ways, body, mind and soul. Get ready for our best tips, tricks and suggestions, including product reviews from all over the world.
Hello, Clive. Thank you so much for being here with me today. You've been a wealth of knowledge to me thus far, and I'm sure our audience will be able to appreciate your humble and your wise countenance, as I do. You've been in the health space for quite a while and have so much knowledge that it's a testament to self-study and how quickly one can be propelled forward without the interference of the tainted system of what we call higher education today. At this point, you're thriving. You're helping people to understand how nutraceuticals, if manufactured with the utmost purity, of course, and targeted correctly, can help make a huge difference in their health. So maybe now I can turn the floor over to you, and you can tell us everything about yourself that you'd like to tell us.
Well, thanks, Teri. Thank you very much for a very nice introduction. I got into this field by taking an antibiotic years ago and ending up in hospital, and the doctors could only offer me drugs, and I insisted that I wasn't low on drugs, it must be something else. And I fixed myself, and I realised at that point the doctors can drug you and give you surgery, but they can't necessarily actually fix you, really, because nobody's low on drugs, but pretty much everybody's low on nutrition. So some years ago, I just focused, and as I say, self-taught really, focused on health and what is it and why people don't have it and how to get it. When I was in hospital 35 years ago, I needed the best products, nutrition-wise, because that's how I got out of hospital. And I sought out a chap in London who I felt was the best that I could possibly find. You know, my father, who I worked with for a time, above his desk he had a sign which said, "My tastes are simple, I just like the best." So, like you were saying, I was sort of brought up that actually in the long run, the best may cost more, but it's going to be worth it. It's the best. So I started a company some years back because when you walk into a health store and you want to find a supplement, or when you look online, it's incredibly confusing because everybody says they're the best. And even in the best health food store, with the best supplements on the shelf, the person selling them to you only knows what they've been taught. And so they don't really know how to guide you. So I decided I'd start a company with a small range of products, which were just the best that I could come up with. The best vitamin C, the best iodine, best vitamin D, whatever it might be. And that was how I started off. And I found that really there are about 12 absolute key products. At least half of those everybody is low on. And I could talk a bit about the ones that everybody is low on, because it's just key to everything. Let's start with iodine. In the United States right now, there's an epidemic of thyroid problems going on, particularly with women. And why is that? What's from the chlorine, the fluoride, and the bromine in flour and brewer and bread that's knocking out the iodine, which is knocking out the thyroid. There's another big issue, particularly in the States and Britain also, which is breast cancer. So if you're low on iodine, well, let's look at the body. Where in the human body of a female is the most iodine needed? In the thyroid and in the breasts. So to give you an idea of what iodine can do, the wife of a friend of mine found a big lump in her breast and was very concerned. And she painted iodine in the form of Lugol's iodine directly on her breast every day. And she did some other things as well, but she credited the iodine. And 4 months later, the clean bill of health, no more love.
Wow.
So most people who have a thyroid issue are on levothyroxine, for instance, from a doctor. The reason most of them got to that stage where their thyroid wasn't working properly, with many of them, it was an iodine deficiency in the first place. Iodine is about intelligence. So if a woman is low on iodine during pregnancy, the child will be born with a low IQ. Iodine is massive. Iodine is the answer for many people for many of the menopausal symptoms, because iodine regulates thyroid, which regulates temperature, and what's one of the problems of menopause. Other iodine symptoms can be dry skin, can be forgetfulness, walking into a room and forgetting why you walked in. And in New York, Dr. Brownstein, medical doctor who's written books on iodine, he's tested, I think, probably well over 5,000 of his patients, and he reckons that over 95% of all of them are low on iodine, which is huge. Absolutely huge. So when I say pretty much everyone's low on it, it really is the case, and people can notice the difference very, very quickly, within days, within weeks. And usually it doesn't take more than about 8 weeks to get to a stage where you've noticed huge changes in your memory, whatever it might be. So that one's huge, and for I don't know the price in dollars exactly, but $30 would buy you a year's worth of it. I mean, it doesn't get less expensive. And the reason that people don't know about iodine, because 100 years ago they did, every doctor knew about iodine, did then, but now it's been erased from medical school. It's very hard to find the information. Of course, it's so cheap that they want it hidden because they want to make money from expensive drugs.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And, you know, a lot of the symptoms that that a patient might present with is really just a deficiency. And I agree with you. You have it on your website. I've known that what causes illness or disease is 2 things, and you added one to that, to my plethora of my list there, but is toxicity, things that are there that shouldn't be, and lack of nutrition, things that aren't there that should be. And then, of course, we have a physical like an accident or something like that. But, you know, we're talking about, you know, general health. You know, if you take care of those two different things as best you can, then your body is going to regulate. Really, it's getting those basics covered, like magnesium. You and I have talked about that in the past. I'm a big proponent of magnesium. Minerals, we're just not getting enough minerals in general, but magnesium is the most important one, in my opinion, from what I've seen. So you have a lot of those products on your website, and they're of the utmost highest quality. You also have a secret health club, which I am part of that. And that is a club where you can get all the juicy bits that you couldn't necessarily have on a regular website or regular YouTube. I understand you had the privilege of being shut down on YouTube. Way to go. So if you join the Secret Health Club, a yearly fee for that, you get all kinds of information that I haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg on. And so you've gathered up a lot of nice facts and such that people can go to really, I think there's almost like a list of, not almost, there is a list of conditions, and you can click on those and see what that's all about. I haven't even gotten to that part yet, but I saw the list. So a lot of helpful stuff there. You know, when you're talking about quality, I like to think of the body in this way. If you were, you know, a teenager and you were given a car, a brand new car, and it was in perfect condition, and you were told that that car would be with you the rest of your life, if it could last that long, which they really can, as a matter of fact, how well would you take care of that car? would you put the best oil in it? Would you really, vacuum that thing out and just make sure everything was running just perfectly? I think you would. Anyone with good sense. And so that's kind of how our bodies are. We're given one body, even though we can regenerate and we can really do a lot for it. We're not a car. But it's the same idea. We're given one body, and I'll tell you what, that body is your vehicle throughout life. And that will do a lot for what you can do and what you can't do. And if you're not feeling well, if you're constantly in pain, if you're just not taking care of yourself, low level energy, all of that, you're not gonna be able to do as much as the person who's doing those things. So at least doing your due diligence and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, saying, "Well, we're already getting sprayed with chemtrails and all this stuff anyway." No, there's a lot that we can do, and it goes a long way. And that to me is respecting your body and really and having goals and wanting to achieve them. So knowing that your physical health is just as important, as your spiritual health, because that is really your vehicle to even get to your goals.
You're absolutely right about the toxins. I mean, clearly there is more than one type of toxin. There's the emotional toxins, the ones that we were given at school. You'll never amount to anything. You're not good enough. You're so stupid, or whatever it might have been. And to forgive everybody and be grateful for what we have is sort of the key to that one, I'd say. When I was studying cancer survivors about 15 years ago, I asked them questions like, "Well, what did you do right? What was it? When did you know that you'd gone from dying to recovery?" And I was expecting them to say vitamin C, quite honestly, or vitamin D, or both, or magnesium. But gratitude was the number one. That they realised that everything happens for a reason, and the reason they'd been ill was to teach them a lesson or a series of lessons. They changed their life, they adapted themselves, started looking after their body, and recovered. So there's that element of toxicity. Then there's the physical element. I would say the two of the most dangerous pollutants out there, toxins out there, are glyphosate and graphene oxide. Now, fulvic minerals, which again are a relatively inexpensive product on the website, neutralize graphene oxide and glyphosate, which in itself is massive because so many people are exposed to those things. And to understand there is one of many things that could be done to remove toxins. And fulvic minerals is extraordinary, really extraordinary material, super useful. The first time I took it, I'd been sending off around the world for fulvic minerals because I'd been studying what the Chinese were using as herbal medicines and so on at that point. I was deep into studying cancer survivors, and fulvic minerals were one of the things that cropped up from my Chinese research. And so loads of bottles and stuff have arrived. I've sent off to America and all over the place. And I keep trying it, hoping something would happen. I notice nothing. And then a tiny bottle turns up. And the next morning, I wake up feeling totally different. It was bizarre. My body felt nicer. I just felt more flexible and stuff. It was weird. Then I'm so impressed. I send off for loads of it. And a couple of gallons turn up. And I start giving it to everybody I know, my clients, everybody. And the first person who rings up was about 3 days later. And it's a friend of mine who was about 3 months pregnant and was having a horrible time with morning sickness. And she rings up and says, "My morning sickness has stopped." Now, one can't for one moment say that fulvic minerals are the cure for morning sickness, but they were for her.
Right. Exactly. Now, a lot of people might not know what fulvic minerals are as opposed to the minerals that we're more familiar with, like calcium, magnesium, potassium, those more known ones. Can you just give us a little primer, I guess, on what fulvic, and there's a lot of fulvic minerals out there, and the sources might vary. So just give us a little primer on that. I think that would be a good idea.
Well, sure. Just before I go into that, let me just say that anybody listening to this who is using calcium as a supplement needs to understand that most people don't need it. And most people, calcium would be a bad supplement to take, full stop. Fulvic minerals come from the soil. Now, when we were living a more natural lifestyle, we would have been picking up fruits or whatever, maybe from the ground, or we wouldn't have been washing our fruits and vegetables before we ate it. And we would have been absorbing materials from the soil, on a day-to-day basis. And so, with modern agriculture, the soil-based minerals are pretty much gone because, of glyphosate and other agricultural policies. We're just not getting the fulvic minerals or any of the minerals that we should, generally speaking. So to rectify that, there are some very rare deposits around the world which have incredible fulvic and humic minerals within them. Every soil everywhere has got fulvic and humic minerals in them, everywhere, right underneath your feet. But there's one half-mile mine in the States, it happens, where ours comes from. And it's extraordinary. It's just extracted with water. It's so powerful, you just drip water through it. That's all it takes. And nobody could be quite sure how the product arrived, that maybe a volcano went off 30 million years ago, covered a layer of ash, and who knows what. But, so there are various ages of fulvic minerals, particularly in the States. There's some from Utah, which is about 100 million years old, which isn't nearly as good as the younger 30 million year old stuff. And it turns out, they can tell from layers of soil, that 30 million years ago, there were 4 times the species that there are now, sort of pre-cataclysm or two, and things are a lot bigger. So the fulvic minerals still have the RNA, or fragments of RNA from 30 million years ago, and they contain all life, basically in the soil. Everything that's ever lived or died has fallen into the soil and become the soil. So these incredibly rich deposits are amazing. So a small bottle, so this sort of size, will last for months. You just put a few drops in water. It has to be pure water. It can't be tap water, because that wouldn't be right. It reacts badly with chlorine or fluoride. But assuming it's good bottled water or filtered water, it's an amazing supplement. And I've had people say things like, their hair's come back, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I think it's a bit like the nanopolycosanol. You don't know what it's going to do, but we know from a biochemical point of view what it does. It changes the pH of the body. It allows the cells of the body to expand, and so to allow the fulvic minerals to go in, release its mineral content, detoxify any toxins within the cell, and expel them again. It's one of the prime detoxifying agents, along with other things like vitamin C, which is also fantastic for detoxifying. You mentioned the C60 charcoal. That also does the same job. And a lot of these materials go back to thousands of years ago, or hundreds of years ago, where we were sitting around the fire, cooking food, and we would be breathing in charcoal dust. Right? So now we don't do that anymore. When we used to cook food on a wood fire, what would happen would be that the ash would be collected later and sprinkled on the vegetable patches, because ash contains every mineral. Minerals aren't destroyed with heat. So there are some tribes who are a long way away from the sea and didn't know what salt was. And those tribes had worked out that if they took some ash from last night's fire, because what they'd do is they'd also put all the vegetable waste, skins or whatever, on the fire, burn that all down out of the way, so they wouldn't have a rotting pile of stuff. And they just put a spoonful or whatever of ash into their next meal. to give them the equivalent of what salt would have given. And our ancestors had it all figured out. They knew how to do these things. They knew about spas, that if you had aches and pains, that you go to a spa, take a bath in a spa on a holiday for 10 days, and your arthritis or whatever it was will all go away, because the spas were full of magnesium. All these simple remedies have been known about forever. In Chinese ancient medicine, traditional medicine, magnesium is known as the beauty mineral. Magnesium relaxes you, fixes heart problems, stops muscle cramp, stops twitches, stops menstrual pain. I mean, it's just on and on. We are just low, all of us, on these basic 12 or so supplements. And it's worth trying them all, really. You can start slow and build up, and see if you get an immediate effect. Many people, particularly if they take the doses that I recommend on the bottles, which often, not always, sometimes is initially quite high, dropping down. There are others that you want to start low and build up. But I find that on average, because 95% of the supplement companies out there in the world have now been taken over by bad guys, often the pharmaceutical industry, it doesn't suit them to tell you the real dose. It also doesn't suit them to sell you the stuff that really works. They want you to have tried it, gone into a main street store, bought something because it was quite inexpensive, didn't work, and then you go to the doctor. Whereas if you take the right stuff and the real quantity for long enough, it can be miraculous, and everything from arthritis to you name it pretty much can go away.
Yeah, and it's a testament to the natural diet. And when you were speaking about that earlier, getting on a really good, clean diet, people call clean diet, is great. Fruits, vegetables, organic produce. If you eat meat, the sources you can find. However, it's not in the food anymore. And so you absolutely need to supplement. Our ancestors ate all that food, but it's not the same food as we have today. So yes, start with, this is kind of getting off topic for sure, but start with a good diet, but understand that you're going to need to supplement that diet. You used to talk about charcoal, clay. If you think you're on a natural diet and you're not eating some kind of clay, you're not on a natural diet. So that cleansed and detoxified the body. So understanding all of these things and just the basics of what our body is designed to do and to have, you can go a really long way. Magnesium's not in the soil. That's why it's, I tell people, they ask me, do I need a supplement? Yes, you do. Everyone does. Maybe not exactly all the same, but pretty close. And if you get those basics down, because, eating a great diet is great, but understand that it's not the same, as your ancestors that had, a potato that came out of the ground is not like it is now. It was full of fiber. They were smaller. Now we have these big, couch potatoes. These big potatoes with no fiber in them. So even the potato's not the same. So to find targeted supplements that, and you're not going to necessarily find them, like you said, going into the store, you're not going to find the best ever, more than likely. You're going to have to seek out those sources. So that's what we want to do, is we want to have a place so people can go to find the best ever supplements. And your store is definitely one of them, and one I've relied on as well. Because, as long as you're going to do it, as long as you're going to take the time, you're going to put that liquid in your water, you're going to take that pill, you might as well make it work. You might as well have the best ever, and also not be supporting, the big companies that really don't care about you. So let's be honest, So, and we want to support the people that, have our best interests in mind, and that's how we move forward the best way we can. So, thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we say goodbye?
Another one of the huge problems in the world right now, particularly in the United Kingdom and in the States, is the drug abuse problem. There are so many people on prescription drugs who don't want to be anymore.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of supplements over and above the ones that we've just talked about, which are helping people get off drugs big time. And those two are amino acids, the essential amino acids in quite large quantities, and the liquid selenium that is up again on the site. And the selenium is extraordinary, truly extraordinary. And it's not new. Research was done in the United States and New York 40 years ago using this exact type of selenium, liquid selenium, getting people off methadone and heroin. And it was incredibly successful. So immediately completely covered up because it doesn't suit, the powers that be to have that sort of problem solved. So people have been coming off all sorts of drugs, from ADHD medication, not just coming off the drugs easily, whereas before it was impossible for them, but because, for a number of reasons, but selenium turns off the body's antitoxins. In other words, somebody's using a drug, the body gets used to having a toxin come into their body, and if they stop, the body, to cope with that toxin, has been making antitoxin. So if they suddenly stop cold turkey or stop alcohol and get the shakes, that's because the body, it isn't due to the lack of alcohol, it's due to the body producing those antitoxins. It hasn't realized you've stopped putting the toxins in. So it works on many levels, but that's just one of them. And anybody with a thyroid problem who is taking iodine also wants to take selenium as well.
I'm on your selenium as of just a couple weeks ago. I started with 1 drop and I put up the 2. But before I even go into that a little bit more, just basic nutrition, I was on a thyroid supplement, the best I could get at the time, Thyroid or whatever, from a naturopathic doctor. Didn't like it, and I actually ended up overdosing me. Like I was in AFib at some point. So I was like, you know what, I'm done with that. And I started, had been researching already, and this was about 10 years ago. And I started supplementing with the selenium and all the things that the thyroid needs. I was having an issue with iodine, and we've talked about that before. I won't get into all that, but just from the rest that I did take, I haven't been on a thyroid supplement for years. And I feel maybe not 100%, but I feel great. That's why I was very excited to get your iodine and your selenium, at least your selenium. That's, I think, exclusive. I've never seen that before. So you can do it. So my message is you can do it. If you know what nutrition you need, you know what you're missing, you have a certain symptom that's presenting itself, instead of just trying to medicate the organ or the symptom away, really try to dig into why, the cause. And so I'm excited with your selenium to see if there's going to be any more any benefits. Like I said, I already feel pretty good. I haven't started the iodine yet. I'm a little scared because I was always getting those weird symptoms, but I'm going to. And plus, when I start something new, I want to just start one thing, and I want to experiment and see what it does for me. And then once I can see that, then I go to the next one. Because if you do everything at once, which sometimes is necessary, and that's okay, but I'm at the point where I don't have to do that right now. So I really want to see what one thing does to me, and then another thing. So the selenium, though, I had no idea until seeing some of your past work about the addictions and how it can help with that. I'm glad you mentioned that because I had forgotten all about it. What is a typical dose of your selenium? Because it's quite expensive, but it's a bottle of liquid. It can last a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that bottle could last a year if you were taking what might be considered a normal dose, which might be 1 drop every 2 or 3 days or something like that. Myself, I usually take about 10 drops every couple of weeks or something.
Okay.
Or if my intuition suggests that I might. If somebody had an addiction they wanted to get over, then for maybe 3 days, they might want to consider doing 10 drops. I had somebody have a great result on ADHD medication on 7 drops for 3 days. I heard recently of somebody who overcame a lifetime of depression and got over whatever the drug it was, 20 drops for 3 days. It's non-toxic. This version of Surrender is non-toxic. This is a very unusual version. Yeah, it's important to study these things. I've got videos on selenium, and while I can't post on YouTube, quite a lot of my videos are still up there. So if you put my name and selenium onto YouTube or brand YouTube, which I prefer, you'll find much more information. Or if you join the Nutraceuticals Club, there's lots of information there. There's no description of any of the products whatsoever. We're allowed we can say about 3 things legally. If we were to say, for instance, water hydrates you, right? If we were to put that as a fact, it's good for you, water hydrates you, that could be 2 years in prison because we haven't done the clinical trials to prove it.
Wow.
I mean, it's just outrageous. This is EU, European law. I mean, we're supposed to be out of the EU now, but not really.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because now that I'm thinking back, I was wondering why there wasn't a whole lot of description there, and why maybe there's not one on the bottle. So that makes a lot of sense now. That's crazy.
Yeah. At one point, I had the bravery to put the word cancer on the front page of my website, as in cure cancer. So within a short period of time, the authorities told me to remove that word. So I reduced it to C ... The authorities come back and sorry. C ... We still know what it means.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the censorship is crazy for sure. Well, it's a testament to what we've been talking about with Big Pharma and all of that. And, I mean, proof is in the pudding, the fruit's there. So thank you for your time today, Clive. I really appreciate it. And we will put your information in the show notes so people know where they can find you.
Thanks, Teri. It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
You've been watching a LifeSource Health Report. To purchase the products, please see the affiliate links in our episode description, where a tiny amount is donated back to support the production of our shows. To connect with us or to see our other shows, please head to lifesource.global. And don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and share buttons. This show is brought to you by Source Light Productions.